Welcome back to our English Teacher YouTube channel. Today I promised you to do some extended activities on relative clauses. First take this. Fill in the blanks with the relative pronoun. You carefully read the sentence and decide what the relative pronoun you want to fill in the blank. A surgeon is a doctor, performs operations. A surgeon is a doctor. Doctor refers person. What is the relative pronoun you have to use here? Who. You argue a surgeon is a doctor. He performs operations. This subject pronoun, as it is a subject pronoun, takes here he, we put who. I think you have understood. Let's go next. The answer you gave is wrong. The answer is a thing. You gave is wrong. What is the suitable relative pronoun here? Which. The answer is wrong. Then the answer is the subject, then which. The suitable relative pronoun is which. I know the woman child was hurt. Whose child? Then the woman's child. The woman's child. Then what is the relative pronoun? Possessive. You remember the possessive case? Whose? The boy I trusted proved to be faithful. Here want to be careful a little bit. The boy proved to be faithful. I trusted him. I trusted him. I trusted the boy. I trusted him. The boy proved to be faithful. Then here this boy has become the object of the sentence. Then what is the relative pronoun you put? Whom. Whom. Okay, let's do more examples. Join the sentences together with a relative pronoun. Now we are going to join these two sentences together with a relative pronoun. First thing what you want to do, you select the word repeated in the both sentences. What word is highlighted in the both sentences? Here is the book. You lent me the book. What is the word repeated in both sentences? The book. Then the book is a thing. Then what is the relative pronoun you have to keep immediately after this noun? Which. Here is the book. Which. You lent me. We remove this without writing again. We replaced this word with the relative pronoun which. I think you understood. Next thing, I want to remind you whether this sentence is defining or non-defining. That also I taught you in the previous video. This book, you carefully see this relative pronoun which you lent me. The book which you lent me is very particular for this sentence. Then I told you whenever this relative clause is very essential for the sentence to be meaningful, we call it defining. That clause is called defining relative clause. Then there we don't use commas to separate relative clauses. The boy won the first place in English. You see him sitting there. The boy won the first place in English. You see him sitting there. The boy is described in the next sentence with him. That is the repeated word. You know what it is? The boy is repeated in the next sentence with the object. Then you remember, I think, whenever the subject is described in the next sentence with the object, we take the relative pronoun whom. The boy whom you see sitting, we remove this. They are on the first place in English. Here also I want to remind you the sentence is defining or non-defining. You argue yourself regarding this sentence also. Whom you see sitting there is the relative clause. This relative clause is also very particular for this boy. Whom you see sitting there. This sentence is very much important to highlight which boy. Then this is also a defining relative clause. Okay, let's see this. Kalidasa was a great poet. He wrote some fine dramas. Who has written some fine dramas? Who wrote some fine dramas? Kalidasa. Then this noun is described with this subject pronoun. Is a person, then we put the suitable relative pronoun who immediately after this who. Then in order to make this sentence meaningful, we take the second clause front, who wrote some dramas, was a great poet. Kalidasa, who wrote some fine dramas, was a great poet. See how this is, whether this sentence is defining or non-defining. This is the relative clause. Who wrote some fine dramas is very particular regarding this subject. That's why this is also a defining clause. Let's see the fourth example. I am your king. I will lead you. See what word is repeated? I. Then I is a person who am your king will lead you. This we remove. And see this. Next thing you want to check whether this sentence is defining or non-defining. Who am your king is not particular for this sentence. That's why this will become non-defining. There may be some other persons who will lead you, you do not know. That's why this will become non-defining. Whenever you identify that this clause is non-defining, only you put a comma to separate the subject and to separate the relative clause from the main clause. Okay, let's see that. Whenever you have a non-defining clause, non-defining clauses, only you put a comma to separate the subject and the relative clause from the main clause. We put a comma. I think you understood. To separate the subject and to separate the relative clause from the main clause, we put a comma. Okay, let's see the fifth example. My brother is a doctor. He has gone to America. Then, what is the word repeated here with the subject pronoun my brother? Okay, now you want to think of the relative pronoun to place immediately after this subject. My brother is a person who is a doctor, has gone to America. Okay. Now, you want to examine carefully this relative pronoun to know whether this is a defining clause or a non-defining clause. My brother who is a doctor. This means one of my brothers is a doctor. I may have many brothers. Who is a doctor? Has gone to America. One of my brothers has gone to America. That is not particular brother I have mentioned here. Then that is why this will become non-defining clause. Okay, in a non-defining clause, you should remember to put a comma in the proper places to separate the subject, my brother, who is a doctor, to separate the relative clause from the main clause, we put a comma. Now I am going to assign you the textbook activities and workbook activities to you children. For grade 9 children, textbook page 37 activity 3 and 4 can be done. Then you come to workbook page 53 activity 1, page 54 activity 2, 3 and 4, page 55 activity 6. I hope you do all these activities assigned by me during this quarantine period. I hope to meet you in my next video on reported speech. Thanks for watching.